In my next story, I want to speak directly to the young professionals watching me right now. Those who are hustling daily, hourly. Those who are locked in the rat race, those who are trying to do it all. It's time you slow down. Your health demands it. A dire warning has come from India's apex health research body, the Indian Council of Medical Research, or ICMR. A new study has found that there is a rise in heart attacks among young people, specifically those young people who have recovered from a severe case of COVID-19. How many of you have been infected once, if not twice? How many in your family have been infected once, if not twice? As of 2021, when the virus was at its peak, a majority of coronavirus cases in India affected people between the ages of 31 and 40 years. So the statistics are alarming, and this study should serve as a wake-up call for all of us to slow down. This warning was echoed by India's Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia. He cautions COVID patients, especially those who had suffered severe symptoms, to avoid hard labour, to avoid strenuous exercise for at least 1 or 2 years after recovery. Why? Because it could lead to a heart attack. The evidence has been staring at us in the face for a while now. Statistics from 2022 show a dangerous trend. There's been a rise in the number of unfortunate incidents, young men and women in their 20s and 30s dying from heart attacks. The reasons? Either long COVID symptoms or COVID treatment side effects. Cut to 2023, we told you about death on the dance floor last week. There have been alarming reports of heart attacks during Garba nights this year. These are nights of frenzy, dance, high-octane music, high adrenaline moves. Imagine 1 second you're dancing and the next you could collapse. So much so that organizers in Gujarat in India have kept medical teams on standby at venues. At least 10 people died of heart attacks during Garba nights in Gujarat in just 24 hours. The youngest victim was 17 years old. Imagine that, a heart attack at 17. Let me now circle back to the ICMR study. It was focused on answering one question: why are young adults between 18 and 45 years dying of heart attacks in India? There are multiple reasons, including family history of sudden death, being hospitalized for COVID-19 in the past, binge drinking, and intense physical activity. The study also specifies that COVID-19 vaccination did not increase the risk of sudden death among young adults. In fact, it reduced that risk. Who can forget the damage caused by the pandemic to our bodies? But can COVID-19 damage your heart? Well, Johns Hopkins cardiologists say yes. How? Because of lack of oxygen. You see, the virus caused inflammation and fluid to fill up the air sacs in the lungs, so less oxygen can reach the bloodstream. Simply put, if you have recovered from COVID-19, your heart had to work harder to pump blood through your body. Research also shows that several COVID-19 patients are still complaining of fluctuating heart rates. And this is not related to exertion of any kind. So if you have shortness of breath, do consult your doctor immediately. Everyone we know was affected by COVID-19 either directly or indirectly. More than 2 years since the Wuhan virus destroyed lives, we still don't know everything about this virus. Take the case of long COVID, the condition where symptoms linger for weeks, months, or even years. It's all still a big mystery to doctors. Some complain of chronic pain, brain fog, shortness of breath, intense fatigue, chest pain. So once again, I'd like to say, if you have any of these, do not ignore these symptoms. What does all this tell us? There was a time when good heart health was considered a privilege of youth. But no, we cannot be complacent anymore. Our lifestyles do not afford us that luxury anymore. It is the age of hustle culture. We are striving for perfection in all spheres. We want to clock our hours at work for that big bonus or that big promotion. We want to work out not a balanced fitness regimen, but the latest workout trend. Forget a leisurely walk. High-intensity workouts are the norm. Forget a balanced meal. A fad diet or a TikTok trend is more attractive. The availability of processed foods at all times, the availability of any fruit round the year, sugar-free drinks, zero-fat sauces. We've moved so far away from the basics that we laugh at a simple Indian meal. 10 heart attacks among the young in 24 hours. Such headlines are not and should not be ignored. Wake up and look after your heart. It's high time we accept that the pandemic has changed our bodies. It's time to accept and live the new normal, and this is your guide to looking after your post-pandemic body. Start listening to your body. If you don't feel like working out, take a moment and ask yourself, are you not in the mood, or is there fatigue? Is your body asking for rest? One workout missed is better than weeks of bed rest. Fix your diet. Don't follow fad diets. Stop chasing extreme transformations. Ditch that TikTok trend and start creating that perfect plate. A balanced mix of healthy fats, protein, carbohydrates, fiber. Start making your own meals instead of ordering in. Your heart will thank you later. Sleep. It's not a luxury but a necessity today. Try and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. Stop doom scrolling and switch off your phone. Prioritize regular health checkups. Prevention is always better than cure. The pandemic has taught us that we cannot be complacent. Treat your body well. It's the only one you'll ever have. And lastly, it is the beginning of festivities. No matter which part of the world you're watching me from, I want to ask you to slow down. Celebrate with your family, but don't ignore signs of stress, mental and physical. Listen to your body. Excess of anything is not good. So as you get ready to dance away the night, just remember that. For this next story, let me begin by asking you this. What things are you likely to find in schools? Books, computers, sports equipment. But in America, very soon, you will also find overdose reversal drugs. Such is the state of drug use in American schools that the federal government has now come up with a rather unique measure to stop the menace. The White House has urged all schools in the United States of America to stock up on naloxone. Now you may be wondering, what is naloxone? It is a drug used to help stop an opioid overdose. According to reports in a joint letter to educators, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, as well as the U.S. Secretary of Education, has said that every school should carry naloxone. They want the faculty and the students alike to be prepared to use the nasal spray in case of an overdose. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved Narcan, the brand name for naloxone, for over-the-counter use earlier this year. So what does an opioid overdose look like? Life-threatening. It requires immediate emergency medical attention. What are the signs? When a person does not wake up or respond to touch or voice, when breathing is not normal, very slow, or has stopped, when their pupils have turned pinpoint size, they start showing bluish lips and nose. Naloxone is an opioid antagonist. This means that it binds to opioid receptors and can reverse and block the effects of other opioids such as heroin, morphine, and oxycodone. The medication can be given by an intranasal spray, which is into the nose, or it can be given into the muscle, under the skin, or even through an intravenous injection. The medication works by blocking the effects of opioids on the brain and restoring breathing. It must be given as soon as signs of an overdose appear. It works only on someone who has opioids in their system and not on any other type of drug overdose. However, it won't have any adverse effects if given to someone who has not taken opioids. Who can take naloxone? Those who have taken high doses of opioids for long-term management of chronic pain. Those who receive rotating opioid medication regimens. Those who have been discharged from emergency medical care following opioid poisoning or intoxication. Those who take certain extended release or long-acting opioid medication. Overdose deaths among U.S. teenagers have been on the rise for years now. The Biden administration is now urging schools to buy and carry the opioid overdose antidote. According to reports, more than 5,000 American children and teens have died from overdoses involving fentanyl in the past 2 decades. By the way, over half of those deaths occurred in the first 2 years of the pandemic. Overall, 112,000 people have died from an overdose in the 12-month period ending in May 2023. This is according to estimates from the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's National Center for Health Statistics. Fentanyl and other synthetic opioids were involved in the vast majority of those deaths. The latest push from the White House comes as it hosts its Youth Substance Use Prevention Summit. The event is aimed at raising awareness of the dangers of illicit drugs, reducing the stigma around mental health and strengthening the safety of communities. But how serious is the drug menace in America? Very, very serious. A government study says that the number of American teenagers becoming addicted to opioids is on the rise. Illicit fentanyl is sold in various forms, including pills that are made to look like other regular prescription opioids. It's also commonly mixed into other illegal drugs like cocaine, heroin, to boost their potency. The result? Users are unaware that they're actually consuming fentanyl. A study published in the medical journal Pediatrics earlier this year suggests that more American teens are dying of overdoses that involve opioids. According to the CDC, between 2010 and 2021, the rate increased nearly 4 times. In such a situation, is stockpiling and anti-overdose medicine in schools the way to address the crisis? Experts say partly. The emphasis must be on making communities more aware. It definitely is a step in the right direction because it can be a launchpad for more conversation. Conversation about the dangers of opioids and their consumption. The Biden administration also states that the push for naloxone in schools is part of a broader effort to prevent drug use and abuse and to ensure that students remain alive long enough to receive help. But when playgrounds turn lethal, when drugs, guns and death is common in schools, it is alarming to say the least. As Chinese leaders disappear into the abyss, Chinese ships are surfacing in the high seas in international waters which China does not control. Let me remind you what I'm talking about. This research vessel, Xi'an 6, last week it arrived in Colombo. To do what? To conduct maritime research off the island's west coast. At least that's what Beijing is saying. But we have our doubts given its track record. You see, in the last 3 years, several Chinese ships have docked in Sri Lanka in the name of doing research. We'll go through the instances in just a bit, but first, let me tell you the fear that these instances have evoked. They've made India suspicious about China's intentions. Are these really research vessels or giant snooping devices? That's the question buzzing in New Delhi as of now. Let's tell you what China is saying. It says the vessel pursued research off Sri Lanka's western coast in collaboration with Sri Lanka's National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency, or NARA. What kind of research? The agency says it was there to conduct marine scientific research in the waters. Interestingly, Sri Lanka's Ministry of Foreign Affairs had earlier said that the vessel was at the Colombo port for replenishment. We wonder who's speaking the truth. Take a look. Let me also tell you some details about this ship. The Xi'an 6 was added to China's fleet of marine research vessels in December 2020. It is said to be the country's first scientific research vessel. China says the vessel's main aim is to focus on geophysical exploration. It is said to be operating at sea for about 80 days with 13 research teams. Now here's the thing. This is not the first ship to dock at a port in Sri Lanka. Last year, China sent a military vessel to Sri Lanka, the Yuan Wang 5. It docked at the Hambantota port around mid-August. At first, the Lankan government refused to admit this visit. Their defense ministry claimed to have no information whatsoever about any port call. Days later, they made a U-turn. The ministry said the ship docked for fuel and replenishment, the same reason it gave this time. If we speak of the vessel China docked, it was not your typical military vessel. It was not a gunboat or a carrier. It was a tracking ship. The Chinese government calls it a research vessel. It was built in 2007 and is among 222 meters long. With that kind of range, China can snoop on Indian assets. And what does that include? The nuclear power station at Kalpakkam, the atomic center at Kudankulam, the Southern Naval Command at Kochi, and 6 ports across southern India. Naturally, India is bound to be alarmed. You see, China has invested heavily in Sri Lanka. It keeps sending ships to the island nation. What do these ships do? Trade during the day and espionage by night. I don't say this without reason. This is all part of China's grand plan to dominate the Indian Ocean. They have ports all over the region. Take a look at this map now on your screens. The Dorale multi-purpose port in Djibouti, the Lamu port in Kenya, Dar es Salaam port in Tanzania, Gwadar in Pakistan, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Chittagong port in Bangladesh. All of these were made with Chinese money. Some are fully owned by China, others have a Chinese stake. This grand project is often called the String of Pearls. At least 17 ports are part of it. All of them are located in the Indian Ocean region. My point is simple. China simply cannot be trusted. In the name of scientific research, in the name of fuel replenishment, it could be spying on countries like India. What's embarrassing is that when the same Chinese ships are in trouble, Beijing doesn't hesitate in asking for help. A few months back, a Chinese deep-sea fishing vessel capsized in the central Indian Ocean, around 900 nautical miles away from India. 39 people aboard the vessel went missing. This included 17 Chinese, 17 Indonesian, and 5 Philippine mariners. China sought help from multiple countries to save its crew. India was one of the first countries to step forward. It deployed its air MR assets to help find the missing Chinese crew. Despite adverse weather, the P-8I aircraft carried out multiple extensive searches. They located multiple objects possibly belonging to the sunken vessel. China even thanked India for all its efforts. This is what India stands for. Despite skirmishes at the border, it was ready to answer China's SOS calls. India keeps humanity over politics. Only if Xi Jinping could do the same.